Hey, gang. Welcome to the last meeting of CSC 470 Computer Graphics for the winter quarter. Today, we will be getting the final presentations. The first three groups went on Wednesday. The last three groups are going today. For students, do remember we will have code review sessions on Monday for your final programming assignment, but this is the last time we'll meet together for class. So today we're going to have the Myconids, Haunting Guild, and Graphical Insanity will be going today. Continuing our reverse alpha order, we will do them in the order Myconids, Haunting Guild, and Graphical Insanity. If you need screen share access, please write that in chat so that I can add you as a co-host if I haven't already done so at some point. And with that, if there are no questions, and there are no questions, why don't you take it away, Myconids?
Sure thing. Let me just go ahead and share my screen real quick. Are you guys all able to see this?
Looks good to me.
Alrighty. Welcome everyone. This is our final update for the Mushroom one. Alan, would you like to kick us off?
All right, I can. All right, so for a quick recap of what we had planned to do, we had planned to add more details for the savannah, add a watering hole, and the underground. But sadly, we didn't get the underground. But we had added a lot more other
Assets.
things. Yes, assets. Thank you.
And to add on to that, while we weren't able to build the underground, Vivian would be able to go more in detail with that. We were able to create the assets for it, and we figured we might as well add them to our world, even though the underground wasn't built in. And in summary, it felt like our project was very ambitious for a one-quarter project, especially when we want to add game features and then also having AI that worked properly on top of everything that we were already trying to do, which was a lot of modeling work. Again, what we wanted to do was have a unique theme, a unique style. So with that, we wanted to have a cohesive look. And in that regard, and because of that, we wanted to have, we had to create our own assets. So for this last week, we actually were working on more assets. And as you can see, some of the modeling work that we did do included, again, assets for the cave biome and the watering hole. Jonah was also able to successfully rig to have the player character recreated, rigged, and ready for this presentation, which is fantastic. As you can see, here are just some Blender renders of some of the fungus models that we created. This one, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly, was for the watering hole. This one is, again, another asset for the watering hole, more simplified. Another one here is for the underground mushrooms. These are, I believe, oh, I forgot to mention. So there are 3 unique models for this asset. And then for this last one, there are 13 unique models just to have variety so it looks more natural when they're placed in our overworld. And just here's another shot of it so you can see how it looks like. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to Jonah.
So when I was working on rigging throughout the entirety of this quarter, really, the struggle with the last one and what I'd realized when I was making this new one was with the skeleton, with setting up the weights. What I hadn't realized at the time is the way Blender works with skeletons, with the weights, and with Unreal. In order to make it interact properly, it needs to use the same skeleton as Unreal skeleton. So when I was making this new model, it's a little untextured, but you can see the shape of it. It was built around the Unreal's original skeleton. Like, if we go on to the next slide real quick, you can kind of see it clipping through. And every single bone has to align properly, which if I was using the skeleton they already had, which I did, it worked properly. What I figured out the issue was with the last one, if you notice those big bones that seem kind of out of place, like the bottom, the top left, and the top right, those are called IK bones. Whenever you're using a model in Unreal, if you use an IK bone, it refers to a bone that, while it doesn't refer to anything at first, if you want it to hold something or to like attach something to the character, it usually interacts with the IK bones. So when I had the old model, what I did and didn't realize I had done is when I applied the weights, I gave the IK bones weights. So what I did this time and what made it take significantly longer than the last one is there's a feature in Blender where you can manually set the weight of each bone, and it's a bit like painting textures onto it. You go through each bone, and when you click on it, it'll highlight, okay, this bone has this much weight, this bone has this much weight, and it'll be like a red to blue, with red being more intense, blue being the least intense. And I had to go through for each bone, and I'd have on one monitor the original skeleton mannequin, seeing what each bone was supposed to correspond to as I painted through. And then once that was done, it was simple enough to just take the FBX file, which references the model and the skeleton, and importing into Unreal. And then once that was in there, it had the same skeleton as the original model. So all you had to do was go into the blueprint for the third person, click on the model, and a little drop-down menu would let you change to the look I got. So to go on and talk about what we got finally is Vivian.
And let me go ahead and stop screen share so Vivian can share her screen.
All right, and as for what we have going in the actual game itself, a lot of integrating in those models that we've got created. Hold on, it just grabbed my mouse before I could hit share, as it likes to do. All right, and so here is our game. It has that same load
And
in.
Vivian, rather than seeing you, we see a picture of your cat.
I have to run it on my desktop, and I don't have a webcam. My
Okay.
laptop can't handle. But so we have that same area as previous, but what we have now is one of the things that we've added is simulation in for wind applying on the grass and other mushroom stuff. I'm going to run over here, which is one of our new areas. Those big mushrooms in the distance are kind of a big, large mushroom forest area, and we reuse some of the cave assets underneath it just to give something there or to be able to use those. And since there is going to be dark areas underneath these large mushrooms, we still get to see one of the other map features we added, which is emissive materials to be able to have objects produce their own light and have that handle reflection. So we see that over here. Not only do we have like we see these dots, those are going to be the cave mushrooms, which were set up to glow. And this whole area is actually wrapped in a post-processing volume, so it may be a bit low res to see, but we do have complex lighting interactions enabled in this area. So we can see these glowing mushrooms. We have some underneath all of these. We also can see there is like smoke rendering out of these. That's supposed to be like these large mushrooms are just constantly producing mushroom spores. So we have that modeled in. And then if we go slightly over this way, we have our second new area in the map. This one's a bit far. I may end up just closing this out and flying over there. Maybe I'll walk here another minute and see. But we have another area, which is that watering hole, where we have multiple lakes rendered in using the new Unreal water modeling system. So that is just right on over here, along with another section. I'm gonna close this out real quick, and I'll just open up sharing again in 1 second. It's just kind of far over there. Let's see, I'm just gonna share this screen now. All right, and so here is our water area. We have some of our new things. We have these, and as we can see, these are also rendered as to have that more motion applied just so that they are doing stuff. And these other mushrooms that we are seeing, these large blue ones, these are the ones that were originally to go in the cave. And then if we get over here, we have several lakes. They are doing something a bit strange with that water, and I think it's due to the planetary scale that this is at. The water in Blend or Unreal kind of gets a little buggy once you're 3 or 4 million blocks away from origin. But those are our two new areas, and we have that water rendering, and we have that light post processing, and so that's where we're at. Um, that is our world, and yeah, I'll go ahead and stop that share because that's what we have got on implemented in this.
I'll go ahead and share my screen again. It looks like we have a question in chat. Oh, let me try and pull it up.
Oh,
Okay, so
the large
ahead.
fungus moving, that is actually set up as part of the material itself. It applies off of I'm blanking now. It is part of the material that gets applied to it as a constant that gets multiplied using the simple grasswind function and some constants, and then it just goes into the world position offset, so it constantly is rendering.
Alrighty. So again, to recap everything that we worked on, all of our assets were handmade. We created assets for each biome: the savanna, the cave, the watering hole. We created a rabbit model, which created a rig. Unfortunately, we decided to take it out of the final result, since we would not have it wasn't implemented quite right. And again, Jonah was able to create a player model and rig it twice, which was a lot of work. And Vivian, if there's anything else you would like to add regarding the world?
I think I got it all with that demo.
Alrighty. Are there any questions for us? Let me pull up chat.
I guess my question would be, could one of you explain again? Vivian, you addressed it, but I wasn't 100% clear. So the water continuously looked like it was receding as you moved towards it. Do you guys, is that just me, or was that actually what was happening? And what's the theory behind why that was going on?
The Unreal, or the water, it was clipping through the ground even though it was started at it, and it looks like apparently it's a known issue with Unreal Water Simulator that if you are like, it works best around 0, 0. And it kind of starts breaking once you get really far away from 0, 0. And the way our planet is set up with the scale and everything, you're just naturally pretty far from 0. So it's rendering like above, and the waves are clipping through the ground, even though they're set as the edge of the lake and the top of it as the constraint. It's just something that I saw.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned, and you may even have it coded in some of the code. It's like when something is mathematically supposed to be 0, we actually don't test for 0 because of real math, you'll never reach 0. So you put a little epsilon, a little fudge factor in there, and I can see how if it was designed so that it's expecting, quote, relatively small numbers, and you're in a situation where the numbers are very, very large or very, very close to 0, depending on how you want to think about it, that could cause a problem. So has anybody else run into that? The only reason why I'm not making an issue, the only reason why I'm discussing it is I've never seen that happen in any other project. And I'm wondering if anybody else ran into it and if they have suggestions.
It looks like Matthew may have experienced it. And Eric said in chat, do you think if you moved the whole map, like select everything and move it to where the water area was around to origin, would it work as expected?
Let's see. I believe the water would. Like I said, I didn't actually make any changes to the water material. That was all as it was set up by just the Unreal material, and I looked at it. I do believe if I did move everything to origin, we should see that water work. However, that would break how everything is currently set on it because it's off of that world positioning. And while that would be resolvable, some of the stuff isn't set as relative due to how it is scaling in that whole planetary scale to be able to do the animations from the beginning. So it definitely would be, but it would either involve digging really deep into that rendering and probably just pointing some stuff over in variables or changing the scale of the map, which would mean that some of the other features back would need to be um, rebuilt and tweaked.
I apologize for cutting this short, but
Yeah.
I believe we're over time by a minute. So if you guys want to carry on the conversation in the chat, we can do so. I just want to make sure everyone has time to present their own work. So thank you guys for listening to our presentation, and now go ahead and
Hand it back to Mike. Okay. All righty. Thank you guys. Appreciated it. So let's see. Up next, again, we're continuing our backwards reverse alpha order. So Haunting Guild is up next. You can take it away, Haunting Guild. Okay, I see Blake is sharing his screen. All right. And we can hear you, Blake.
Perfect. All right, we are Haunting Guild, our final project update. Just overview again. Our game concept was focused around an open world exploration type game with a day-night cycle, varied environment, and weather effects. Part of the concept was having friendly NPCs during the daytime, hostile and or supernatural NPCs at nighttime, with players being able to search for items during the day to help with survival during the night. Due to some issues we had, our last sprint was really refocused on the core environment elements to get that spot on. We'll review what we're working on here. So I've been working mainly on weather effects and day-night cycle this sprint. Matthew's been working on environment building and topography, and Jerome, I think, has mainly been working on NPC logic. So this was sort of my pet project for this sprint. I was really unhappy with the way the day-night cycle was working. I mean, it would get darker, but it never looked great. If you look at the bottom, that's sort of the absolute darkness from the previous iteration versus the top, where now it looks like nighttime. You see the stars. It's not like some light sources coming up from over the horizon, and everything looks really clean compared to previously. But there was more complexity in that than I expected there to be. Had to do a lot of work trying to figure out how to balance the different world light elements. There's a lot of components that are kind of tied to things like sun position, even in ways you might not expect them to be. So having to undo some of that and take some manual control of a few settings, and then coordinating all of the different setting changes so that they worked smoothly and it wasn't like an on-off switch when you went from day to night. So this is ultimately the blueprint for the day-night cycle that I ended up with. There's no more on-off. Everything is a smooth transition from day settings to night settings. There's a set of blueprints here that establish the sun rotation. That's really the only sort of borrowed code here. Everything else I had to come up with on my own to get this to work properly. And most of the way this works is the blueprints take a linear interpolation for the intensity and color, and they base that on a time setting. Like over 5 seconds, the variable will move from 0 to 1, and they'll use that to determine the color and or intensity of the various parts of the sky. Here's just a look at the sun rotation. It's adjustable for demo and or in-game purposes. And this helps us create this sort of night threshold variable that is a trigger point to turn on and off the transition. This was sort of the main feature that I had to work a lot with, were the timelines, using that to create that descending variable or ascending variable to control the different linear interpolation functions. These are the settings just for controlling the different things on the sky sphere that needed to be changed, different colors, different intensities. Same for the skylight and the sunlight. I did finally get to implement some of the dynamic weather features. And it works largely in the same way. In fact, it was the inspiration for how I went back and fixed the day-night cycle. Does much the same as a new weather effect comes into play. You see the clouds start to gather and darken, and then the particle effect will start. Move on to Matthew.
So my main thing was trying to finish up how the map in general looked. One of the problems that we had last time was that because I was manually setting the river because we already had a landscape. I was having a problem with basically walls of water that were going along the entire thing. So I tried my best to mask them either by expanding the river into like the into the cliffs or the ground, or I'd lower it a little bit, or I'd do like what I did here, in which I added rocks and stuff, which kind of hides the walls of water. The next thing that I was working on was adding snow to the top of our mountains, so that way it would look a bit nicer, and that it wasn't just one terrain for the entire map for the most part. And then the last thing that I was working on was just a small little river and stuff. It adds to the branch. It basically just flows into the main river. It's not too long, but it's something that if I would have had probably like another sprint to work on, is adding a lot more of these, because there's a lot of valleys in the mountain range. So getting all the set to flow into certain areas, it takes a while. So yeah, that's what I did.
Hello, so I've been working on some of the wildlife aspects of the game, um, like the animals or whatnot. I ran into a lot of performance issues with my laptop, so I wasn't able to get nearly as much done as I wanted to get done. But I did get some animals into the game. I was working on implementing an AI for the animals. Uh, Unfortunately, that didn't make the demo, so you won't be able to see it. But it's a really rather simple hard coded kind of AI. This one particularly is for the deer. Basically, it operates in a nav mesh box, and it gets it has a function called get random reachable point, and it just gets a random point within those bounds, and the deer moves to that point. It'll look around, it'll graze for a minute, then you can see it chewing and standing there being graceful or whatnot, and it'll just repeat, go to another location and do the same thing. But now we'll show you well, I tried to, I see, uh, I tried to separate it or whatnot, but currently every time I try to load the Unreal Engine, it crashes even for a simple project. So I don't know exactly why that is, but yeah, I know it's really unfortunate I can't, but they can now show the demo of what we do have working.
So we wanted to kind of highlight an overview of the map, which was something we haven't really shown off much before. And I apologize for the motion sickness. It does get better.
Are you just being quiet, Blake, or have we lost audio on you?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think I was just being quiet there.
Yeah, you might want to narrate what's going on just so
Yeah,
we know
just
you're alive.
Oh,
We
yeah,
did.
that little water thing, I don't know, that was off the edge of the map there. It was a glitch that happened that I don't exactly know the reason why. It shouldn't be like that, but I've tried deleting it, but it won't delete for some reason. So
We did have some issues with the water kind of overflowing its boundaries or sitting atop things, but Matthew was able to fix that in the last sprint. This is sort of a picture-in-picture of one of the original builds and the current build, just displaying the difference between the landscape and how the day-night cycle has changed. And we'll just get a close-up of some of the water features and how the rocks are being implemented to hide some imperfections in this. Oh, and there's just how the clouds are gathering, the rain is starting. That's just sort of a gist of what the dynamic rain looks like when it shows up on the map. All right, and I think that's it for us. Does anyone have any questions?
I know you guys covered this in a previous presentation, but where did you get the your character asset? The guy that walks around.
Yeah, I got that off the Unreal Marketplace.
Okay, was that free or?
Yeah, it was one of the monthly free assets. It's not normally a free asset.
Okay, yeah, I was curious.
I think there was a question for you, Blake, about the lighting.
Can you read it to me? I'm having trouble pulling up my comments here.
It was did you have to make your lighting dynamic to get the shadows to look normal, or did you find a way around that?
Actually, all of the lighting is static. I disabled the dynamic lighting because it was killing us having to rebuild lighting every time we made any change to anything. Our machines just are not prepared for that.
Lighting is expensive, that's for sure. And having gone over some of the basic calculations, we know why.
That
With
definitely,
just a small number of objects.
in getting the lighting working for this, sort of understanding how the different main features of the lighting engine worked, made a big difference. Early on, I was really focused on that light source, the sunlight, and realized that's really not the most significant thing on the map there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Last but certainly not least, we have the alphabetically first team, Graphical Insanity. If you guys will take over.
All right, can everyone see this?
Yes, sir, and we can hear you as well.
All righty. I'll be passing it off to Evan. He'll start us off.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Zumwalt. My group mates are Alex Fosho and David Amort, and we are Team Graphical Insanity. So a quick recap of what our game is. We are an underwater search and recovery of a black box from a downed plane is our overarching goal, premise of the game. And we have a heavy focus on exploration and visuals and environment building rather than gameplay loop or core mechanics. And this takes place in our made up fantasy version of the Bermuda Triangle. It's not exactly accurate to the one we have here on Earth, but we just kind of put our own spin on it in favor of an interesting environment. So the landscape was my primary responsibility. I focused on a single biome rather than doing multiple biomes because it felt better to just put all of my effort into one and make sure the one is very good rather than kind of spread it about. And we currently have 2 points of interest to explore. We have the downed plane, which is the objective of the game, and we have a special point of interest called Parrotfish Reef, and I'll touch on that later as well. And like as I said before, we focused on creating an interesting environment over a realistic one. And these are the 2 blueprints I used primarily for constructing the biome. I constructed these out of the individual assets and then essentially copied and pasted them in different sizes, shapes, variations across the landscape to make a dense, lively reef. And this is Parrotfish Reef. As you can see, it's a coral formation with the shape of a fish. You can see the tail coming out the back and the head at the front. So the challenges we faced in the landscape was the most difficult one was actually scale. Something happened in between the midterm and now where we started working at a much larger scale than what we had previously. So anytime I imported an asset, I'd scale it way up so that it would look normal. And obviously the thought of scaling everything else down didn't come until later. That is what eventually solved our issue. But we really got kicked down when we tried to use the foliage tool, and all of our assets were very tiny. So we had to rebuild a lot of our drone mechanics and such using our smaller scale. Another challenge we faced is uniformity. It's kind of difficult to make because a reef has to look very homogeneous. It has to be very uniform. So that was an interesting challenge to make it look natural. And believability. And that's not so much in the sense of, wow, this looks real, but more in the sense that it looks natural and it's not jarring to look at. And this is the immersive effects portion of our project, and this was Alex's primary responsibility. So I'll allow him to present this part of the presentation. Alex, if you don't mind. Let's see. Alex, I can't hear you. I see you're unmuted.
Oh shoot. Okay. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Okay. Hello, my name is Alex. Yeah, my primary role was immersive effects. I the whole place is underwater, right? That's where our entire like environment is based on. And we initially, like in the last time y'all saw us, we were trying to use the water plugin that came with Unreal. I came to realize between midterm and now that that plugin is not, you cannot use that for underwater effects very well at all. So I completely scrapped it, completely made a very custom underwater environment that we were able to customize the lighting and how things like light up and stuff, and make it look like a deep underwater where there's like not much sunlight that reaches it. Also, I worked on a little bit on drone movement and collision. So like the drone doesn't just clip through walls and floors and stuff. All right, if you go, so there's an example. He has like a big fish there that he showed in his as an asset that he made, and that's my lights coming from our drone and shining on top of the fish. The oval there is not an after effect. That is we actually have our camera position to where it kind of makes you feel like you're in a submarine type deal, to where you're actually in a vehicle going about the water. And so yeah, challenges was collision. We tried to be able to bounce back whenever you hit a wall or a ground. But the number one issue with that is that when we try to bounce, it would actually like be really jarring, and when you hit something else, it will bounce back kind of thing, and it would like be very jittery and glitchy. Didn't really We couldn't really figure out before this final before this presentation how to get it a smooth collision where you hit a ground and it just bounces right off very smoothly. And also believable beam lighting. We actually did manage to achieve this to what I believe would be believable beam lighting underwater. I mean, I've obviously never been in a submarine underwater, so this is just a guess on how it will look like, but I think it looks pretty good. But for the most part, I spent several hours trying to figure out how to basically create light shafts underwater to where it made it look believable, where your light's reflecting off the water in front of you.
Alrighty. And I was more focused on the gameplay mechanics, which would be interacting with the black box to essentially pick it up, and as well as giving quest objectives that will be shown in the demo. I don't believe we have any pictures of it. I think that's the summary I can do. The object interaction is a bit funky. The way I have it implemented is when you go up to the black box, you will press the button that I had predetermined, which is E, and all it will do is take whatever is directly in front of the camera and just make it disappear. And that is how we got around that object interaction. And I'll show that and a bug that is with it in the demo.
All right. Before we go to the demo, I see Eric has asked a question about what issues were we running into the water plug-in. One of them was light shafts did not work underwater on the water plug-in. The reason for this is because water is not water. Underwater is actually just fog. That's basically which is customized to trick your eyes to thinking it's water. So there's two different types of fogs in Unreal. The type of fog that the water plugin uses does not support volumetric lighting, which is what we needed to get the light shafts to work. And it took me way too long to figure this out. And so we switched it to height fog, height something fog. There we go. I'm sorry, I kind of can't really remember the name of it, but volumetric fog. There we go. That supports volumetric lighting is how we got that to work. All right, now you get to go.
Alrighty. Alrighty. So we'll be starting off in this area here. As you can see in the top right, we have the objective, which is starting off to locate the crash site. Mechanics are the same. We did have to get rid of the mini map, which I didn't mention before, and that's collision. But the mini map would not work with this setup because we got rid of the skylight and it would not illuminate the ground anymore. So it wouldn't show up in the little box on the top left, so it's just gone. Here we are, we're just looking at the reef. Trying to do this slowly. Trying to avoid collision as well. Right here. When we get
to Stephanie, yes, Subnautica was a very heavy influence for this project.
Yes. So when we get close to the crash site and we actually find it, the objective will change to retrieve the black box, and I gotta position myself to where I can just hit E, hopefully get it first try. Nope. There goes the rock. That's the bug that I'm talking about. It'll take any actor and just make it disappear.
You got it, bro. I believe in you.
It's fully destructible environments. It's a feature.
Oh, there it
There
is.
it
Yeah.
goes.
Biplane. But after that, after you retrieve it, you know, you can just explore around more. You can come see the parrotfish that we got over here. This creepy thing. It's also lovely. We got the parrotfish here. I'm gonna go around back since we already got a view of this side in the presentation. Shoot. We also got brakes to work, so it is very nice.
That fish is kind of creepy though.
Oh yes. Hold on. I haven't gotten to the creepy part yet.
You're almost there.
I'm almost there. And it has teeth. This was a model we had found, and for some reason it had teeth, so we kept it.
It was a parrotfish that we found online, and I changed all of the materials except the teeth to the coral reef texture to make it merge with the natural formations. And I thought the teeth was hilarious, so I left it as is. A little Easter egg.
Oh boy. All right. And I believe that is it. Is there anything else y'all want me to show? Or are we good, Evan?
I think we're good, bro.
Yeah, I think you touched on everything.
All right. Let's get back to this. Alrighty. Are there any questions? Besides the ones already asked?
No, just a comment. I thought it looked pretty cool, and it does have a nice, as you guys kept saying, kind of a creepy vibe to it. But it's also, you know, it looks quite cool. So very interesting. Other questions for these guys?
Andrew had one in the chat, and we use the foliage tool. That's what the whole scaling problem was from, is because I had a bunch of different rock and like sea cabbage textures or meshes that I really wanted to spread across the ground. But the only way to do that without wanting to rip my hair out was going to be to spread it procedurally across the ground using the foliage tool. So we had to scale the entire project down to accommodate that.
Are there any other questions for the group? Okay, so before we call it quits, everyone needs to make sure that you have graded all of the teams. There are 2 surveys each person needs to fill out, right? There's the overall grading survey, the project final evaluation. You guys started that last time. Y'all need to finish it this time. If you run into any questions or problems with that, throw me a private message in chat. But since no one has mentioned anything, I assume that that's working well. Let me see if I check on how many answers we have so far. There are 13 responses so far. Oh, they're coming in quick. There are only 6 of you who've not yet completed the questionnaire now. Okay. 5 are still outstanding. Now remember, once you complete this, you also need to do your own members only survey. It is critical for me to be able to use the results of the member only survey that it end up averaging a 3. So the average grade has to be a 3. So if there are 4 people on your team, I guess what you have a total of 12 points, right? If you had 4 people, you have 3 people on your team, you have a total of 9 points to assign. And remember, even though don't think of 3 as giving somebody a C, because that's not what it is. A 3 means everybody pulled their weight and equally deserves a share of the grade. So a 3 is you did a good job. You pulled your weight. You contributed. If you start moving away from 3, right? A 2 is basically somebody who kind of slacked, and a 1 is, well, they showed up and they didn't really do anything. And on the other end, a 4 is somebody who really pulled way more weight than they should have. And a 5 is the person did all the work on the project, basically. So keep that in mind as you assign those grades, and they do have a real impact on how I scale the grades. Okay. Let's see where we stand. Let's see. There's still 3 outstanding questionnaires. All the name, these Anthony, Noah, and David. Your 3 have not registered yet. And actually, David, it shows that you haven't even started yours for some strange reason.
I actually just submitted mine.
Okay. It could be that if you didn't start one on Wednesday or weren't in class, that would be the reason for that. Yep, there are 2 left. Okay, now I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to check the I'm going to check the individual team ones. I'm sorry I'm having you guys sit through this, but if the numbers are wrong, then I'm not going to be able to compute the grades. So it's better that we make sure that everything's filled out properly now rather than after the fact. Okay. Graphical Insanity, all three of you registered, and it worked out that actually no, there's one of you who haven't filled out Graphical Insanity. David, Alex, and Evan. I could look up and figure out which one of you didn't, but one of you hasn't registered yet. Also, too, if you finished all of these and you haven't done the evaluation, please, today's the last day to do instructor evaluations. Haunting Guild, you guys are good. And I was going to check on one more. I was going to check on Mike and Eads. And also another reason to make sure we get these taken care of is they lock at 12:30. Okay. Cool. Mike and Ids, yours, all four of you have responded on there, so that's excellent. Okay, and one final, I'm going to go back and see if there are any stragglers on the overall grade. Any stragglers on the overall grade? I'm still missing Anthony Toussaint and Noah Broussard as far as registering grades. It will, I don't know if you guys bailed already or what, but it will lock and you won't be able to record grades. And I'll actually ping you if you don't fill out a survey because it's part of your requirement for the class. Okay. All right. So the last thing we have is our code review sessions on Monday. They are not up yet. The sign-up sheet isn't, but I'm going to do that right after I end today's lecture. So it'll be up within the next 30 minutes to an hour. The sign-up sheet will be there, and I encourage you guys to go ahead and sign up ASAP. And again, it will be Monday. We will not do a class meeting on Monday. We'll just do a code review walkthroughs. So, I hope you guys had a good time. I know it's a lot of work for this class, but I think it is interesting. Hopefully you learned a lot about how a modern game engine works, and hopefully you also learned, some of the fundamental concepts that underlie how graphical systems work. So I always enjoy teaching this class. I think it's cool. I'm actually enjoying writing the programs myself as I update the notes. I haven't done that in a while, so it's pretty cool. Okay, and with that, I'm going to end the recording and say goodbye. If anybody has any other question they want to ask me after class, I'll stick around. But if not, you guys have a good weekend, and I'll talk to each one of you individually on Monday. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.